Okay. Well, so I will send out a link to that, and in the meantime, Joe Chapman has been working on some revisions or some ideas on revisions to the device configuration involving templates, so that it's easier to set up devices of the same type. Joe, did you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'll talk about that. Um, yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I've got some notes. You could call them designs, but they're really in flux, so I'll call them notes. Um, and you should see my screen shortly. Oops. Um, I'm not sure can anybody see it?
I can see it.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So the workflow that I'll show is using the Voltron Central UI to create and upload templates and then select them for use so that a template would be used to speed up the configuration of a device based on the points that are scanned. And so just in general, I guess that's what this slide shows is, you'll need to generate a template, you'll need to upload it, you scan the device, and then you select the template to apply to it. This would be a sketch of what would be in a template where for that device type, you would have a list of objects where the key would be a regular expression to apply against point names. And if the regular expression matches a point name, then it could do things such as extract or assign the Voltron point name. It could set other attributes as well, and it could grab whatever's left over from the actual point name and stick that in the metadata column. And so that's basically what would be in a template for a device. And if we have the device configuration UI where we've detected our devices and now we're going to use a template on one, we would scan the device to get its points, and then just somehow, I mean, this is just a sketch basically, but we could extend these controls here uh, for selecting and uploading registry configuration files, and so we could extend that to instead of automatically selecting a registry file, instead you could select a registry template, or instead of uploading a registry file, you could upload a registry template. And to create the template through the UI, it could be a table, an edit table, where you would add the regular expressions for the point names, and then the other columns that would go into that part of the template. So that's kind of a quick example of how it might be handled in the UI. After we discussed this I think it was earlier this week, we realized we just weren't sure about which way to go with it. So the main question was, how much of this should be done through the Voltron Central UI? Um, as I've shown in my workflow, it was assuming that each of those steps would be handled in the UI, but it could be that a lot of that is done in the back end, like through the BACnet proxy agent, I believe. And not only could we just pass the responsibility for correctly setting up the template to the developer or the user to upload that through the command line, and it would be put into, say, the config store. You know, that would be an option instead of having an edit table in the VOLTTRON Central UI that handles a lot of the correct setup of the template. And another option would be to actually have a regular expression for the device name as well. So then anytime the BACnet scan finds a device.
We never use it with that, but when we started...
Getting some background noise from the audience.
Yeah, from Terry. Thanks, Terry.
Anyways, so if you have a regular expression for the device name itself, then when the BACnet scan finds a device name with that matches that regular expression in the device name, then it would just automate even further the applying of the template to the device. And that could all be transparent to the user on the front end who's using VOLTTRON Central in the UI. Instead, if the BACnet proxy or the config store already has the template for a device, then when you scan the device and then scan for its points, then the template could be applied automatically.
Hey Joe, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Terry Hurwitz from Telemation. I want to understand this a little bit more, and maybe I don't know, a thought or a suggestion or at least an observation. I think I've been trying to do something similar to this. We have about 8 boxes now deployed on on BAS systems in DC, and various BASs, and what is common and it's common in BAS world is that there will be I'll give you an example. There's a building with 36 Daikin units, and they all have the same point name and point description, and everything's identical. It's just the device instance that's different. And so although I've been using the UI for configuration, that's really tedious when you have 50 or 30 or 100 of the same thing. And so I realized that I can upload one registry file and then just configure the device. So I'm using one registry file over and over and over again for the same type of device that have the exact same points in it. Is that what you're trying to address with this, or are you trying to address even that it can find, or just if there's a point naming standard, it can find even to similar devices as long as they have the same naming standard?
Yeah, I think so. You're correct in that you can use the same registry file on multiple devices the way you were talking about. I think we had some input some feedback that it would also speed things up if, we could apply this templating to, say, the point names, where the point names might include some metadata, and so you could use the regular expression to at least identify which point you're dealing with, and it could automatically extract that data and create a VOLTTRON point name based on it. And so the difference would be that in that case, you're not applying the same exact registry file to 12 devices.
Oh, you're applying. You're just giving it. You're applying the VOLTTRON point name. That's what your focus is on this whole effort is to rename it or give it a better name?
I think that's the primary attribute that we're talking about, but some of the devices, when you scan the points, the point name actually has other data that we're interested in as well, that we don't necessarily want that to be in the VOLTTRON point name, but then that extra metadata could be saved in another column for metadata.
Well, let me jump on that idea a minute. So one of the things that we've noticed about VOLTTRON, at least in my working with it, with the UI, is it first doesn't collect that much metadata to begin with, which I wish it would collect more. And for instance, when we were using Trender, it collected a bit more metadata. And when we say metadata, really BACnet object properties, right? That's what it's collecting. And so one of the things that I've been doing, because in our application where we're putting VOLTTRON boxes, we're already connected to a platform that has IntelliWeb connected to it. IntelliWeb is just it's Delta Control's building automation system, and it's got a report tool engine that can go out and extract all the point names from any site. So I run that report tool, and I can ask it to collect any property that I want. So along with pretty much all the BACnet properties, and there's whatever, about a dozen of those on every point. So having more metadata is valuable, but I got the impression that the driver doesn't collect more. Like, that's all it collects. Can you collect more metadata with the existing driver than what it's collecting now?
Well, the main metadata that I'm referring to is contained in the point name itself, the point name property.
Yeah, so this was a use. So in most of our previous deployments, especially on the campus here, the point names in the BMS are pretty much useless. And
yes.
So that's why we just go straight to wiping that out, basically replacing that with the VOLTTRON name. But in some of the other deployments for users that we've been talking about, their building management system does actually have information embedded in the string for the point name.
Okay.
And so they wanted to capture that, still rename it to the VOLTTRON name, but capture the information that was in there.
Hey, Terry, are you there?
Yeah.
Can folks hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. So, at least a few of our buildings have a format where there is, in the actual point name, there is a unit name or a room name, and then a unit name, and then like zone temp or supply temp or those sorts of things. And so that was the goal, was to try to keep some of that data available throughout the process.
No, I get that now, and I do think you're right. That is valuable, and that is very common in BAS world, that those point names do have a number of things embedded in them, like room number, what air handler unit it is, and then of course it's its acronym, what kind of point it is. So yeah, no, I would agree with that. So that I get that. Renaming, I will say that I do like the fact that it has the ability to rename that into something useful. So yeah, that's a great tool. So I get what you're trying to do now, and I guess it makes sense to me.
Okay.
So Jeremy, if you'd guide me here, that's what I had to show, and sounds like we've had some discussion about it. So I'm not sure where we leave it, or.
Well, you present it, and we can discuss it more here, or follow up an email for the people who are interested in this, and yeah, just give us your comments.
Hey guys, it's Nigel from SES.
Hey.
Yeah, I think this is addressing some of the concerns that we had and we talked about a couple weeks ago in terms of automatically renaming things to some readable name based on that original name and using regular expressions to help with that, right? So I think that's really good, and the idea that you take the original, I guess what were you calling it, a point name, and putting it into the metadata record or field so that you can make use of that later. Just to I guess reiterate Terry's point about getting more properties. Like, is that something that, like, Kyle, do you have anything to say about that as far as being able to get those properties using the back pipes? Like, is that something that we want to add into the metadata field as well, or?
Okay, so I'm just, and now we're talking about like in the metadata field in the UI,
or just being able to get more
just,
metadata in general through the.
In general, like, you only need to put it somewhere once, right? And we might as well have a static table that includes all the BACnet information that we could get, you know.
Right.
And is that something that is configured in the back pipes driver?
So
I don't think it's a make or break thing. We can do without it, but there are certain things
that
may help. I don't know. I mean,
so from a like philosophical, well, so I had originally hoped that it would be like additional columns in the registry file.
Yeah.
As appropriate, but of course, as you mentioned, there's you know, the type of metadata you're going to be interested in is going to be different based on the object type. And you're right, it's going to be something that you're only going to grab once. So I've thought about this problem before, and whatever solution we come up with is we really want it to be general purpose so that it can benefit all the driver types and not just bagpipes. It's just the bagpipes can take advantage of it better because the configuration grabbing routines go out and get more stuff, basically, when you're grabbing the configuration in the first place. And then there's already a spot for metadata in the general driver framework, but it's pretty limited. And so the idea would be is that we would just want to put something extra in the CSV that's just a catch-all for whatever metadata you want to put in there, and then when it publishes it, you know, every time it publishes, it also publishes all the metadata, and so you just have basically a dumping spot for additional metadata that will get published every time. Mm-hmm. And so then it just becomes a matter of improving the configuration grabber to get more stuff when it's useful. And if you wanted to manually go in and add more, it would hopefully be a pretty simple process. But if we're going to have like a metadata column, we're going to have to format it somehow. And so that, you know, do we really want people editing that by hand, or do we want to do something where we have a set of, well, maybe we could do something where we have column names that have a specific prefix on them that are just metadata, and then you just add as many of them in as you want. Hey. That might actually be, I just thought of that now. Maybe that's a good idea.
Hey, Kyle. I'm sorry. This is Terry. I want to jump in just a minute. So
Sure.
My sense is we're talking about maybe two different things. One is the metadata as in tags, additional tags that we want to add, and you know, in the case of haystack tags that we want to add. And I got the impression that the registry file could include as many columns as you wanted. It only needed 6, but it could include as many as you wanted. Is that true? Can we simply add tags as many columns as you want, and it's held in that? So
it would be in the registry file, but it wouldn't be visible anywhere else. That's what I'm getting at. Is that you can put whatever additional columns you want in there. It's just that the driver doesn't do anything with it.
Well, and I'm not really thinking that the driver would. In fact, to me, that metadata really needs to reside in the database, in the Mongo or whatever database that we're sending the trended data to. That's where the tags, really, the additional haystack style tags ought to be. But
sure, certainly, but my point is in order to exfiltrate them out of that CSV file, the driver is the only thing that ever actually deals with that file directly in terms of the system. And so so when I talk about having it publish the metadata, that's how we get it from the configuration file into, say, the historian. Is we're publishing it, and from experimentation we know that the size of the publishes doesn't matter, it's the number of publishes that you do. And so tacking metadata onto the end and just republishing it every time, it's not that big of a deal, and then it's just available. So when the historian captures it, says, oh, hey, I've got metadata, or my metadata has changed, and then it updates the corresponding table. So
the other part of that, though, I think that I was bringing up, and I think Nigel was too, is that for instance, the BACnet, every BACnet object has a description property.
Yes.
And BACpipes doesn't capture it, and that's a huge hole.
No, that is incorrect. We attempt to grab it every single time, and we put it in the notes column if it exists. Okay, now
I'm going to note that.
UI,
I don't know that I've seen that.
Okay, so the UI code might not be doing that, because we've got two different things that can grab a configuration. We have the old command line scripts, which is what we've been telling everybody to use until the UI comes online. If it's a problem in the UI code, then I'm not aware of it. But I do know that the old command line scripts, which Craig based his code on, that it goes in, it grabs the description property if it exists, and populates the notes column with it.
Okay, then you're probably right. The UI, and I haven't got good enough to do the command line yet, and I know that's my fault, and I need to bone up and get there. But I'm pretty confident the UI does not capture it, because I've been using that, and the description field is missing.
Okay.
But and then I guess and I don't know. Do you know how many? I mean, could you send me something of exactly which properties the BACpipes driver does in fact, or can capture?
So we can get anything that can be boiled down into a basic type, like a string, an integer, an enumeration. We can get anything like that. We have problems supporting some of the more complex BACnet objects, because we have to, in order to send them across the message bus, we have to turn them into a pure Python representation, and so it's a matter of adding those support for converting the different property types into pure Python representations. That's the thing that stops us from working for everything, is for every one of those oddball types that are in some way complex, we've got to add code in to deal with them individually.
Would that include the units column? Because I know that's one of your required columns, but I would tell you that when I do a scrape with Delta's driver, the units columns comes in correctly. When I do it with VOLTTRON, it comes in funky.
How is it funky?
Well, it doesn't. It never has CFM or F or C or anything like that. It has it's got enumerator. It's got it doesn't know. It says unknown. It's got all kinds of things besides the unit.
So here's what's going on in that case. The different unit types are part of the BACnet standard, and there's this long list of enumerated values, but vendors, now I'm not saying that this is what's happening in the first place, but this is what we've seen in the past, is if they are using additional unit types that are not in the BACnet standard, BACpipes is not aware of them, and they could be vendor specific. So we're kind of now they may have added additional ones, and the version of BACpipes that we're using might not support them yet, but that's what we're going is those unit types are in the BACpipes library, and so we get it out, we get the value out, and then we ask the library we ask BACpipes for the string representation of the units, and if it doesn't we just stick something generic in, or we say it's this enumeration.
Is it? Is it possible though that, because I'm I'm really only referring to very standard unit types. And,
Okay.
These are, I get that there are some funky object
Right.
types that maybe don't have a standard unit, but I'm talking about temperature, CFM, humidity, all the very standard ones. I don't know that I've seen a unit type come out. And again, I'm using the UI, so if the UI somehow either works differently, but I've been doing a bunch of scrapes with the UI, uploading those. Here's what I actually have done a fair amount of.
Okay, so can I? I was going to mention something that I was hoping, which kind of dovetails right into to where you're going. I think is one of the things we've seen examples where the UI is generating configurations for points that don't exist, and so there's some suspicion right now that there's some problems with the UI code that generates the configuration. What I'm going to work with Craig to do is we need to do, because as far as we know, the command line stuff works properly.
Okay.
And I'm as far as I know, it works properly, and it's also, as far as I know, we've never seen it generate lines in the registry file for points that didn't exist. And so one of the things that is on our plate to do is to scrape devices, especially devices on your networks, because this is where we're seeing the problem. We want to scrape it with the command line configuration and then also scrape it with the UI and compare the resulting registry files and see if there are discrepancies.
Okay.
Because that is something that, as far as I know, we have not actually done and we need to do. And I have talked to Craig about doing it. It is one of the things that we want to do.
I know, maybe what I need to do, because we have a great test site, let's call it, at the moment, and I can if I get or give it to somebody else or get command line adept, I can do that. I can scrape command line, I can scrape with the UI, and then I can scrape with a different driver. That I know is a robust one, and then we can compare those files. I've been doing that with the UI and the other one, but not using the command line. And if you're saying the command line is solid, then I probably need to use that instead.
Right. And then there's two different versions of the command line. There's one that works through the BACnet proxy agent, and then there's another one that's standalone where you have to shut off the BACnet proxy agent in order to use it. The one that you have to shut off the BACnet proxy agent in order to use is the most robust and reliable one there is. There were a few things that slipped through the cracks when I ported that script over to use the proxy. But I didn't do the exception handling right because it changed and I didn't realize it. So if you want something that's going to give you the least amount of hassle, use the it's called grab BACnet config, not proxy grab BACnet config, because that's the one that works through the proxy.
BACnet config. Okay.
Yeah. The only tricky thing about that is, in a similar way that you set up the proxy agent, you have to set up that script and basically describe the virtual BACnet device that it's going to use to connect to the network. So it duplicates the settings that are there for your proxy configuration.
Okay.
Which is inconvenient, and which is why I made the script that uses the proxy. But as far as I know, I fixed all the problems in the proxy version of the script. But we had run into problems with it fairly recently, and I think those fixes made it into develop. In fact, I'm sure they have. But if there are other issues, then I'm unaware of them. And as far as I know, the one that does not use the proxy is rock solid.
So while we're talking about this, let me just, because I would really love to get these 8 boxes we have out there, scraping and trending data on these 8 BASs. And so it seems like maybe the best way to do that in any quick way would be to use the command line, the grab BACnet config one, and just do it without the UI. You're pretty confident that it's, I think I did a little quick analysis on 8 sites, and then out across 8 sites, I think we have about 25 different BACnet device types. Everything from Johnson to Siemens to Trane to Daikin to, and so we wanted to just get an idea that it works, how it works on all those. So I'm asking, would the best way to do that would be to do this testing is use the command line, build the configs, And actually, we started building the configs offline, meaning that I get a report out of IntelliWeb. I CSV it. I can build the CSV registry file. I upload it. And it's just easier because I can do that with, I can do that without knowing command line. So
right.
But then I still got to configure the actual device itself and
sure.
So is that the best way of doing that in order to?
Well, we would like the best way to be the UI because it's the least tedious.
Right.
Yeah, because what you're because doing it on the command line, I'll just enumerate all of the steps involved, and people have automated this stuff with scripts in the past, but they're written for their specific network, so I don't know how useful it would be for you. So first you would run BACnet scan to find your devices and get the proper representation of the address. Then you would run grab BACnet config. You would give it the device. You could probably, in most cases, you could just give it the device ID, and you would capture that the output of that program into a file. Then you would open that up in, say, Excel, or if you can do it in a text editor, it doesn't matter. You edit the CSV file and strip out the points that you don't care about and put in the new names, which the UI is designed to do that pretty well. So you'd have to do that. Then you would take that configuration file and you would use the command line to put it into the config store so that your drivers can use it. And if you have multiple devices, each with their own configurations, you would have to do all of those steps that I just listed out for each device.
So let me ask you.
And then when you're when you're done with all that, then you would need to create your driver configuration file, and you could probably just create one and then modify it for each device, changing the device ID and the address of the device as needed, and whatever settings are specific, and change the name. You have to specify the registry file in the configuration for each device, and then you would use the config store command line to put each of those individual device configurations into the config store. If you're doing 8, doing it by hand is not too bad. If you were doing 100, I would say write some scripts to automate it. Like make a CSV file that just listed out your devices, and then have a script that read that CSV file and built all your configuration files and stuck them in the store for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me describe some of the sites, and I think this is very descriptive of BAS systems in general. Is that if it's the Johnson system, you've got these supervisory devices like an NAE, and all data flows through them.
Okay.
But if it's a standard BACnet system, you don't have supervisory devices, and you have a ton of devices. So on a Johnson system, you might have 2 or 3 NAEs. So now you're only configuring 2 or 3 devices with lots of points in them.
Okay.
In another environment, like we have a building with 400 devices on it. That's a flat BACnet network. Every device is on the network, meaning drives, meters, all that kind of stuff. So configuring 400 devices is a pain in the ass. And so I'm just explaining the different types, and then a way to make that device configuration a little bit easier on sites like that. It won't matter on sites like with JACEs or NAEs.
Yeah,
but on other sites it will.
Well, and I should point out that on sites with JACEs and is it NAE? Where you've got all of your devices are basically, those points are mirrored on the supervisory controller. In those cases, it can be difficult to set up agents to work with those devices if you've flattened out all of the device. If you're representing all of those physical devices through the virtual points on the JACE. And so what we will tell people to do oftentimes is to grab the configuration for the JACE and then break it up into smaller per device configurations and set up individual devices to add some context to a group of points on the JACE, and so you're breaking, you're using the driver framework in VOLTTRON to logically break the JACE up into individual devices behind it. It's, I mean, if taking all of the points on the JACE and just flattening it out and representing it like that, it works for you, that's great, and that's really good for you because that's way easier. But a lot of times when people start writing agents that deal with individual devices, it becomes much easier to, it becomes more ideal to break the devices up into logically.
I see what I would agree with you in terms of representing it on the, in the framework. You're right in terms of
I think and Joe could probably elaborate on this better than I have, but there's stuff in the UI to help you cope with that scenario because we deal with it here, and so we were aware of it. But yeah, no. So I guess the real topic of discussion is how do you deal with it when you've got 400 actual devices and you're running your scan and you've got 400 devices and you want to set them all up without wasting 3 days of your life. That's really what we're talking about here, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think there's going to be examples like that where, where we don't have a lot with 400, but we have some.
Yeah, and so, I guess the biggest problem is coming up with a UI-based paradigm for dealing with that particular situation. I can imagine ways to do it via the command line and with scripts to automate it. And in fact, we have had other users that have done that before, where they are aware of the fact that they have like 4 or 5 different configurations for 400 odd devices. And so what they will do is they'll get like a list of all of the devices, their BACnet IDs, and it'll have like a device name, the BACnet the device ID, that's what I'm looking for, the device ID, and then which CSV file to use, and they'll either write a script that will use the results of the BACnet scan utility to build that CSV, and maybe they'll edit off some of the rough edges, and then they'll take that CSV file and they'll use it to automatically generate all of their device configuration files and put them into the store. So that's for very large deployments like that, that's what people usually end up doing. And if there's like a set of scripts or something that we could develop to help ease that, there probably is, but it's, it seems to be the development of the script seems to be like site by site as so far in how we've dealt with that, because like who was it, Gerard, and I can't remember who Gerard was with, Jeremy. That company.
He was with us.
He was with it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Gerard was with the television. Okay. See. Yeah. So I'm really talking about Gerard and the scripts that he developed to automate the generation of all of the device all the device files and then put them into the store. So
I'll have to dig them back up.
Yeah. But the thing is like, even when you're using like Trender, and Trender tries to, and our code tries to grab these configurations as quickly as possible, even when Gerard was using Trender, if I recall, it would still take a long time to do stuff because you would click on the device and it would go and it would grab all the metadata, or it grabbed basically the same, roughly the equivalent to our configuration file, and it would take as long as it, just as long, and so you would have to sit there and babysit. Okay, what's the next one? Here's the points I want, and so it's still kind of a long and tedious process either way.
No, I would agree. I mean, a Trender, it would find all the devices fairly quickly, but once you had to, you had to then scan each individual device separately. So there's no question that was still, took some time, and that's fine. I mean, we understand that when you have 400 devices, it's not going to be something that we do in like 1 hour. So.
Thank you. So, okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have some nice, easy, elegant solution where you can just say, well, just point this program at your network and it will configure itself, because unfortunately, it's not that simple.
Now, we expect that, in setting one of these up for a typical BAS, and I say a typical BAS, say there's a 2,500 point BAS, as I say is a fairly typical one, and we want to trend, 1,500 of those. That it's okay if that takes an 8-hour a day to configure. I think that's a reasonable amount to expect, and we're trying to get the tools to get to that point.
Yeah. Okay, and that's and as much as we're trying to get away from the command line tools, really they're never going to go away, because on these large deployments where you're going to need to automate the configuration as much as possible, you're going to end up leaning on those tools like a crutch.
But like, what I think would be really helpful is to say, I mean, I think we have the scripts Gerard wrote. They're bash scripts. But couldn't we maybe get some example code or added to the script, the BACnet script, where for our particular application, I think if we're going to do it from the command line, the ideal thing would be to go grab the entire network and get all the devices on the network, and then go save a CSV for each device address in a directory somewhere, and then you could just zip that directory. I could ship it to Terry or the team in DC that's doing the tagging. They could get all the tags right on those CSVs, and then we just go upload them back in for the devices. Like, just that level of getting a baseline, some level of automation to it would be really helpful, I think.
As far as getting all of your configurations for all of the devices on the network, that script would not be very difficult to write with our existing tools.
Right, that's what I thought too. I mean, I started working on it the other night, but we've had other things on our network of just keeping VOLTTRON up and running that have been keeping me busy. So,
what would probably help you the most, especially if you're willing to write your scripts in Python, is what might be helpful is to change the output format of the BACnet scan scripts, because right now I think they do some sort of it's meant to be human readable, and the design.
Yeah, what I was trying to do is combine the way they're written. I think they're written pretty well, so you can import both of them. And then I was trying to automate, import both of them, and then instantiate the scan, get the results back, and then start feeding that into the point scan.
Right.
There was something that held me up. I don't remember what it was, and this has been a couple of weeks ago now.
Well, I think the biggest problem that you're going to run into is that if you're using the proxy-based ones, it'll be slow, but being able to combine them will be easier. If you're using the non-proxy, scripts that have their own VM in them, the BACnet virtual devices are not equivalent in the two scripts. And so you would have to retool one or the other. And so what I was
trying to use the proxy one.
Okay. Yeah. The I think maybe your best bet is to not try to combine them, but to treat them as two different steps. and I would change the BACnet scan to output output into a CSV file. And so instead of the list, or the human readable format that you get now, just have it just basically dump the individual devices to rows in a CSV, and then wrapping up the configuration scanner and have it be fed by the rows of that CSV would be pretty straightforward, I would think. So and then the scripts are kept separate to do the things that they do well, and then you just you can I think that then we're not trying to come up with this amalgamation script that other people may or may not necessarily be able to use, or that doesn't that is really designed for one specific purpose. But yeah, I mean, I can help you with that if you want. It should.
I think it'd be helpful. Yeah,
Okay.
any sort of reference implementation of that would be helpful.
Yeah, because we could do two things. We could change the output format of the scanners to be CSV, and then we could add an option into the scrapers that said, instead of learn about the device that you want to scrape from settings on the command line, you could say, I've got a set of devices listed out in the CSV file, do them all, and then the separate tools remain there, keep their intended functionality, and then you can still go in and in 2 steps do the whole thing. And then that gives you the opportunity, once you've scanned the entire network, you can go into the intermediate CSV file and strip out the stuff you don't care about.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Cool. In fact, if you want, I could try and whip something up real quick after the meeting. That doesn't sound very difficult. So, and
that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, I'm at a good stopping point on my other stuff. So yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. All right. Well, before we wrap up, any other questions?
Yeah, it's Nigel here from SES. Does anybody have a good free BACnet Explorer tool that you've been using to just look at the actual network that you're...
I don't know.
This is Terry, Nigel. I can list. Let me just see here. I know there's WACnet. All right, so go to hvac.io. He's got a free one. I know Symmetrics has made theirs available for free as well now. So go to symmetrics.com. They have one. Hey Jesse, Manny, what are the other free BACnet tools that we use besides Symmetrics and WACnet? I'm sorry?
Yet another BACnet.
YABE.
YABE.
Yet another BACnet Explorer.
Yet another BACnet Explorer. That's that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what happens when you let nerds name stuff.
Voltron.
Thanks.
Back ice?
Yeah, Voltron.
Back eye is another one.
Okay.
That's the fourth one. Back eye, like EYE.
What's the best one that you guys after your
Manny,
testing?
What do you have? Which one do you prefer, Manny?
The Yabe one.
The
Yabe?
The Yabe one, yeah.
Yabe.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one was really good too, but I think you need a
Have you tried the Symmetrics ones? I can't imagine that theirs wouldn't be a good
I
one.
tried looking for the symmetric, and
You have to go to their website and then you have to actually buy it, but it's free.
Exactly.
No, it's free.
And all that,
No, no big deal. Okay.
I got it.
I mean,
Tried it.
I haven't tried those, but I know the Symmetrics one. They used to charge for it. Now they've made it free. You got to put your email in. I don't know. They're going to probably send you some junk mail, but still, those guys I think have a very solid BACnet stack. You know, Siemens uses it, so I can't imagine it would be a good one as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
I've got a question about something specific to do with the Crate Historian agent and new developments on that, but I was chatting with Craig yesterday, so he kind of knows where I'm at.
He wasn't able to make the office hours today.
Okay. And Andrew, are you still there? No. Okay.
All right.
I'll leave it there then.
Yeah, follow up an email if you want, and I will see. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks. Thanks for calling in.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for your time, guys.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
I'll have Andrew, if you're still on, I'll have that done.